The Monaco GP has revealed what everyone feared about the newest package of Mercedes. The future success of the Silver Arrows in 2023 is under a huge question mark. Russell has spoken up about what he expects of the W14 in the upcoming races, as has Wolff. But even with the team going in a brand new direction, it seems like it's not enough to win races on pure merit and clear race pace. Could this be the end of Mercedes' 2023 season after just 6 races? Before we go and analyze that question, let me just say, I hope it's not true. If there was one team on the grid that had the authority and the knowledge to challenge Red Bull and overcome such a deficit, it was and is Mercedes. With the new philosophy and 17% more time to spend in the aerodynamic facilities, nothing is officially over yet, but the news coming from the team will make some eyebrows frown throughout the F1 world. So let's get straight into it. Ever since the 2023 season started, Mercedes has had a horrifying wake-up call. What they thought would work earlier in 2022 is just making no sense, and they've been in the wrong. So 18 months of development have been thrown under the bus, and the Silver Arrows decided to go on another journey, one that would potentially see Hamilton claim his 8th championship or Russell be the new maiden champion of the sport, and Monaco was the first test of these upgrades. So not to be disappointed or anything, but Mercedes has kind of failed the test of keeping up with Red Bull further down the season. Had it not been for the strategy blunder of Ferrari, both of Mercedes' drivers would have ended up behind the Maranello team, which may not mean that much in Monaco due to the narrowness of the track, but it's still something they need to consider. Hamilton and Russell qualified P6 and P8 on the track that was supposed to bring out the best of the W14. No other team brought upgrades here, and while we watched one of the most legendary qualifying sessions in the history of F1, one thing remained in the dark. Mercedes' lack of rear downforce may not have been sorted as they initially planned with this huge package. Obviously, the hopes were brought down before the race, because, as Wolff said, the true challenge for the W14 would be a more traditional outlet, such as Barcelona. But due to the team not wanting to waste time anymore and gather data for their newest upgrades, they've decided that Monaco is the right place to bring these to life. That would have almost turned out to be one of the costliest upgrades for the Brackley-based squad, as Hamilton's shunt in Q3 has barely managed to keep the entirety of the car in one piece. This brings out the first problem for Mercedes. The drivers have to learn how to drive the new car, the one that has more rear downforce and can be a bit unpredictable if you haven't gotten the full grasp of it. Not to overreact or anything, but it's like Hamilton and Russell are now starting the 2022 season instead of being 6 races deep into the 2023 season like every other driver out there. Now, while we wait for Barcelona, let's talk about the key takes that Mercedes could have extracted out of the air in Monaco, as they were presented right in front of their eyes. With Perez's devastating qualifying session ending prematurely in Q1, the whole world was able to see what kind of magic is happening underneath the RB19 and where the Austrian team draws the speed and the performance from. It's no wonder, to be fair, because the mastermind behind it, Adrian Newey, has been long enough in the sport to know what works and what doesn't. And Red Bull saying that they were quite shocked that no other team understood the new technical regulations is definitely throwing dirt directly in their faces. Hamilton's car was also lifted in the air during FP3, and the difference was more than noticeable. The complexity of Red Bull's floor is something that not only no other team has on the grid, but the replication of it seems like a mission impossible for the F1 experts out there, as Ted Kravitz went on to analyze the differences and point out a couple of them. The Sky F1 pundit said, "Thanks to Sergio Perez, the whole of Formula One has seen the fabled Red Bull floor. Go onto the internet and see for yourself. It is a thing of wonder and beauty, especially when you compare it to the floor of the Mercedes and the Ferrari, which we also saw up on cranes, so we got a full view of it this weekend. They look prehistoric." Even the little guide fences have got guide fences of their own on the Red Bull. It is so complex in 3 dimensions, not only in elements coming down but then curling round, and it's got circles where the vortex start and then the vortices are generated midway through the floor. Then what they're doing with the area under the crash structure and the gearbox as well. Now, everyone kept their eyes on the new sidepod design of the W14, which was obviously the number one thing that you'd notice was different compared to the rest of the races that the Silver Arrows raced at. However, the main issues that they needed to tackle with this huge upgrade was a lack of rear downforce, and this is something that comes more with the floor than the sidepod design. While the sidepods being present is definitely a huge plus in Mercedes' performance, and Wolff said that the car has turned from awful to not good, which is still a positive direction to go, the floor is definitely the key area that Mercedes needs to sort out if they want to be competitive anytime soon. The question is, can they do it? Seeing a flaw up in the air in Monaco and thinking, this is something we could do to our car as well, could be a bit of an arrogant approach to this entire issue, and Williams' head of vehicle performance, Dave Robson, reckons that just because the rest of the grid had the opportunity to see the flaw of the RB19, it doesn't necessarily mean they will be able to copy it. Russell has also spoken about the harsh truth of the importance of the W14's flaw, saying that while everyone expected the sidepod design to deliver the magical 2 to 3 tenths per second to the car, in Monaco we've been reassured otherwise. Obviously, the hopes for a more competitive outlet in Barcelona remain high, and on a more traditional circuit, Mercedes will definitely have the potential to show what the newest upgrades are capable of. But as of now, the entire package has failed to deliver what we expected it would do in Monaco, locking up a front-row start at least. When talking about the entire sidepod philosophy of the car, Russell added, "We wanted to rule some things out. The sidepods haven't necessarily brought any additional performance by going to a more Red Bull concept. The magic is more underneath the floor, but we still had to rule it out. We've done that now we move on." The sidepod change in and of itself wouldn't have guaranteed performance gains on the W14, because we saw it last year with Aston Martin, and what happens when a team brings an exterior copy of a dominant car, the RB18. So the future for Mercedes may not be that bright, given the fact that even with a new flaw introduced in Monaco, the team still struggled a lot to deliver the results that their fans and the entire Formula One world desperately hoped for. While it's still too early to judge their performance by one track-specific race, it's worth noting that the future may not be as bright for the Silver Arrows. They've spent 18 months going in the wrong direction. Have they wasted their time instead of learning? The massive package they've brought doesn't seem to be doing the things it was supposed to do so far. Wolff's delivery on this matter is also disappointing, and with him saying that the team could possibly win a couple of races this season with a new design, it speaks volumes about where Mercedes' mindset is right now, fighting for P2 at its optimum. Nobody hyped up the upgrade package from the team before it arrived, but this is a standard Mercedes policy, where they would just go and say that they are not expecting anything out of the car with the new features, and they would go on and put on an absolute showcase. The team is definitely moving in the right direction, and that has been pointed out by Russell and Hamilton as well. But what they seem to be lacking is time, which is not on their side, with the next massive shakeup being scheduled for 2026. Although perhaps it's too early to ask, is Mercedes out of the competition in 2023?